Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the most prominent and divisive figures in Israeli politics. As Israel's longest-serving prime minister, his leadership has shaped the country's policies for over a decade, and his influence on the global stage is undeniable. But with his extensive career has come a fair share of controversy. Netanyahu's political decisions, personal conduct, and leadership style have earned him both fierce supporters and equally passionate critics, making him a polarizing figure both in Israel and internationally. To understand why Netanyahu is so controversial, it's important to examine his background. He comes from a well-known family with deep ties to Zionism. His father, Benjamin Netanyahu, was a historian and a strong advocate for a greater Israel, which had a profound influence on Benjamin's worldview. This background set the foundation for Netanyahu's hardline approach to national security and territorial claims. Netanyahu's political career began in the 1980s, but he rose to prominence in the 1990s as a leader of the right-wing Likud party. One of the early controversies surrounding him involved the assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1995. Rabin had been making significant strides toward peace with the Palestinians through the Oslo Accords, but Netanyahu was among the leaders who vehemently opposed these negotiations, believing they compromised Israel's security. Though Netanyahu was not directly linked to Rabin's assassination, many blamed the toxic political climate that included aggressive rhetoric from right-wing leaders, including Netanyahu, for contributing to the event. This association has haunted his reputation for years. Netanyahu's first term as prime minister, from 1996 to 1999, was marked by efforts to stall the peace process and maintain Israeli control over the occupied territories. During this time, he focused on security issues, particularly countering threats from groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, which earned him praise from conservative Israelis but criticism from those who sought a lasting peace with Palestinians. The peace process, already fragile, further stalled under his leadership. After a brief break from politics, Netanyahu returned as prime minister in 2009, and his second tenure has been even more controversial. One of his most contentious policies has been the continued expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. These settlements are seen by many in the international community as illegal under international law and a major obstacle to peace. Netanyahu's government, however, has defended the settlements, arguing that they are essential for Israel's security and that Jews have a historical right to live in the West Bank. This position has earned Netanyahu widespread criticism, particularly from pro-peace advocates and much of the international community, but it has also endeared him to Israel's right-wing electorate, which sees the West Bank as part of Israel's biblical homeland. Another major point of contention is Netanyahu's relationship with the ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel. To maintain his governing coalition, Netanyahu has relied heavily on these parties, which hold significant sway in Israeli politics. This alliance has led to policies that many secular Israelis find troubling, such as the exemptions from military service for ultra-Orthodox men and the increasing influence of religious authorities over issues like marriage, conversion, and education. These policies have deepened the divide between secular and religious Israelis and have been a major source of tension in Israeli society. Netanyahu's relationship with U.S. politics has also been a focal point of controversy. His close ties to the Republican Party, particularly his alignment with former President Donald Trump, were seen as a departure from Israel's traditionally bipartisan approach to U.S. relations. Netanyahu was a vocal critic of President Barack Obama's Iran nuclear deal, which he believed posed a significant threat to Israel's security. He famously addressed the U.S. Congress in 2015 to oppose the deal, a move that many viewed as an affront to the Obama administration and an unprecedented foray into U.S. domestic politics. While Netanyahu's stance on Iran endeared him to Republicans and many Israelis, it strained relations with Democrats and parts of the international community. On the domestic front, Netanyahu's leadership style has been described as autocratic by his critics. He has been accused of undermining democratic institutions in Israel, particularly the media and judiciary. Netanyahu's government has passed laws that critics say are designed to weaken the press and limit the power of the Supreme Court. His supporters argue that these moves are necessary to ensure that Israel's government can function effectively, but his opponents see them as part of a broader effort to consolidate power. Perhaps the most significant controversy surrounding Netanyahu in recent years has been the multiple corruption investigations against him. Netanyahu has been accused of accepting gifts from wealthy businessmen in exchange for political favors, as well as attempting to manipulate media coverage by offering regulatory benefits to media moguls. In 2019, he was formally indicted on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, making him the first sitting Israeli prime minister to face criminal charges. Netanyahu has vehemently denied the allegations, calling the investigations a political witch hunt, and claiming that he is the victim of a biased legal system and media establishment. Despite these legal challenges, Netanyahu has maintained a strong base of support, particularly among right-wing voters who view him as a defender of Israel's security and Jewish identity. His ability to stay in power, even in the face of legal battles and political turmoil, is a testament to his political skill and the loyalty of his supporters. However, the ongoing corruption trials have cast a shadow over his legacy and have raised questions about the future of Israeli democracy. Netanyahu's policies on security and his handling of the conflict with Gaza have also been the subject of significant debate. Under his leadership, Israel has fought multiple wars with Hamas, the Islamist group that controls Gaza. While Netanyahu's supporters praise his tough stance on terrorism and his commitment to defending Israel's borders, his critics argue that his approach has done little to bring about a long-term solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The recurring violence between Israel and Gaza, along with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, has drawn condemnation from human rights groups and international organizations. In addition to his security policies, Netanyahu has faced criticism for his handling of Israel's economy, particularly the growing economic inequality in the country. While Israel has seen significant economic growth during his time in office, much of the wealth has been concentrated among the country's elite, and many Israelis struggle with high housing costs and stagnant wages. Netanyahu's economic policies, which emphasize free market reforms and privatization, have been praised by business leaders but have been a source of frustration for lower and middle-class Israelis. In conclusion, Benjamin Netanyahu's legacy is a complex one, defined by his strong stance on national security, his hardline policies on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, his controversial alliances both domestically and internationally, and his ongoing legal battles. While he is hailed as a protector of Israel by his supporters, he is viewed by his detractors as a corrupt and divisive leader whose policies have deepened societal divides and damaged Israel's democratic institutions. Whether he remains a fixture in Israeli politics or eventually steps down, Netanyahu's impact on Israel and the region is undeniable.